Maya Reeves slipped into the back row of the community center's art classroom, her tattooed arms drawing immediate stares from the other students. The small coastal town of Port Harbor wasn't used to newcomers, especially not ones whose skin told stories in vivid ink. She set her worn canvas bag down quietly and took out her supplies with practiced efficiency. "Welcome to our Wednesday evening art class," the instructor announced, a middle-aged woman with paint-splattered jeans and a warm smile that faltered slightly when she noticed Maya. "I see we have a new face today." 20 pairs of eyes turned toward Maya, taking in the intricate designs that covered her forearms, crept up her neck, and disappeared beneath her simple black t-shirt. She nodded politely, but offered nothing more, her posture perfect, her gaze steady. The whispers started immediately. "What's with all the tattoos? Probably some biker chick. Doesn't really fit in here, does she?" Maya heard every word, but showed no reaction. She'd endured far worse than small-town judgment. The weight of her dog tags beneath her shirt reminded her of that fact. A secret talisman connecting her to a life these people couldn't imagine. The instructor, Mrs. Calloway, explained the evening's assignment. A self-portrait that revealed something personal, something true. "Art is about vulnerability," she said, making eye contact with each student. When she reached Maya, she paused, perhaps noticing the slight hardening in her eyes. As the class began working, 3 young men from the local college positioned themselves around Maya's easel, not quite circling, but close enough to make their presence felt. "Art class, huh? Interesting choice." Maya continued mixing her paints, her movements precise and economical. "Those are some serious tats," another said, leaning closer to examine the intricate pattern on her forearm. "What are they? Tribal?" Maya finally looked up, her gray eyes calm but penetrating. "They're reminders." "Of what?" the other asked, genuinely curious. "Of people who didn't come home," she said simply, then returned to her canvas. The young man exchanged glances but didn't move away. Outside, rain began to fall, drumming against the community center's roof. The weather report had warned of a significant storm system moving up the coast, but no one seemed concerned yet. As Maya sketched the initial outline of her self-portrait, her mind drifted to the last time she'd been in a storm. Not rain, but gunfire. The mission in the Gulf that earned her the tattoo curving around her right wrist. Colonel Merrill Tengestal had been there, directing the operation from above, while Maya and her team moved through hostile territory below. The community center's lights flickered briefly, pulling Maya back to the present. Mrs. Calloway was discussing color theory, but Maya's attention had shifted to the windows, where the rain was now coming down in sheets. Her instincts, honed through years of training and combat, sensed something wasn't right. The building's old foundation creaked under the assault of wind and water. Maya noticed a hairline crack forming along the ceiling near the entrance, a structural weakness that concerned her immediately. She returned to her canvas, but her awareness remained heightened. These civilians had no idea what was coming, but Maya recognized the signs of impending crisis. She'd faced worse odds with less preparation. If necessary, she would protect these people who whispered behind her back, just as she'd protected strangers in countries whose names they couldn't pronounce. For now, though, she was just the tattooed girl in art class, an outsider they judged at first glance. Maya added a shadow to her self-portrait, the shadow of the person she'd been. The Navy SEALs legend was written in classified files and in the ink on her skin. The storm intensified with frightening speed, transforming from a heavy downpour to a howling monster that shook the community center's aging structure. A deafening crack echoed through the art room as a section of ceiling gave way near the entrance, sending water cascading onto the floor and blocking the main exit. "Everyone stay calm," Mrs. Calloway called out, her voice betraying her own panic. The lights went out completely, plunging the room into darkness broken only by the occasional flash of lightning. Screams and confused voices filled the space as people knocked over easels and supplies. "Quiet!" Maya's command cut through the chaos, her voice carrying an authority that silenced the room instantly. Phone flashlights on. Point them at the floor, not each other's eyes. The students complied without question, something in her tone brooking no argument. The main entrance is compromised, Maya continued, moving to the center of the room. We need to assess structural integrity before attempting the rear exit. She was no longer the quiet outsider, but a commander taking charge of a critical situation. Who put you in charge? Challenged one of the young men who had circled her earlier. A tremendous crash answered his question as another section of ceiling collapsed, this time bringing down electrical wiring that sparked dangerously near a puddle of water. Maya moved with astonishing speed, pulling two students away from the hazard before they could react. The building's failing, she stated flatly. We have approximately 12 minutes before that east wall gives way completely. We need to move, now. As if to punctuate her assessment, the building groaned ominously, and a hairline crack raced across the floor beneath their feet. How do you know that? Mrs. Calloway asked, clutching her clipboard to her chest. Same way I know there's a service corridor behind that supply closet that leads to a reinforced section of the building, Maya replied, already moving toward it. Everyone, single file, leave your belongings. The group followed her through the narrow passage she revealed, emerging into a maintenance area that seemed more stable. Maya methodically checked the structure, her movements precise and practiced. The roof access ladder should be secure, she said, pointing upward. From there, we can signal for help or access the adjacent building if necessary. As they climbed, one of the students slipped on the wet metal, crying out as he began to fall. Maya's hand shot out, catching him by the wrist with a grip like iron. For a moment, her sleeve pulled back, revealing not just tattoos, but a jagged scar that could only have come from combat. I've got you, she said, her eyes locked on his. Trust me. Once on the roof, the full fury of the storm became apparent. Wind threatened to knock them off their feet, and debris flew through the air like missiles. Maya assessed their position, then pointed to a maintenance shed that offered some shelter. There, she directed, then turned to help Mrs. Calloway, who was struggling against the wind. A piece of metal siding tore loose from a nearby building, hurtling toward them like a blade. Without hesitation, Maya pushed the instructor down and took the impact herself, the metal slicing across her upper arm. She didn't flinch, simply removed her belt and fashioned a quick tourniquet above the wound. You're bleeding, one of the students cried. I've had worse, Maya replied, continuing to guide them to safety. In the relative shelter of the maintenance shed, one of the young men stared at her with dawning recognition. That tattoo on your neck, that's the seal trident, isn't it? And that pattern on your arm, I've seen that before in a documentary about a classified operation in the Gulf. Maya's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. My uncle was military intelligence, he continued. He mentioned the female operative who saved an entire unit during Operation Silent Harbor. They called her the Ghost. The others looked at Maya with new eyes as blood seeped through her makeshift bandage and the storm raged around them. The building they'd evacuated groaned once more, then collapsed with a thunderous roar, confirming Maya's prediction to the minute. We're not safe yet, she said, ignoring their stares, and the night's just beginning. Dawn broke over Port Harbor, the storm's fury finally spent. Emergency vehicles surrounded the community center ruins, their lights flashing against debris-strewn streets. Maya stood apart from the others, watching as paramedics tended to the minor injuries among her art classmates. Her own arm was professionally bandaged now, the medic having insisted despite her protests. You saved our lives, Mrs. Calloway said, approaching Maya with red-rimmed eyes. How did you know exactly when that building would collapse? Maya's gaze remained on the horizon. Structural assessment was part of my training. Word had spread quickly through the small town. As the art class members recounted their ordeal to first responders, the whispers about Maya transformed from judgment to awe. The young man who had recognized her tattoo had shared what little he knew, and now everyone looked at her differently. Lieutenant Commander Maya Reeves, said a voice behind her. Maya turned to find Captain Harris, the local Coast Guard commander, standing at attention. I thought it was you. He offered a crisp salute, which she returned automatically. Sir, she acknowledged quietly. I served with Colonel Tengistal. She told me about Kandahar, about what you did. The art students gathered closer, their curiosity palpable. That's classified information, Captain, Maya replied, her voice carrying a gentle warning. Not all of it. Not anymore, he countered. The mission was declassified last month. Your Silver Star is a matter of public record now. A murmur went through the small crowd. The tallest of the young men who had circled her in class stepped forward, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine remorse. We judged you. We saw the tattoos and made assumptions. Maya's expression softened slightly. People usually do. 3 days later, the art class reconvened in the town library, a temporary space offered until the community center could be rebuilt. Maya arrived last, hesitating at the doorway. The room fell silent as she entered. Mrs. Calloway approached her with a canvas, Maya's self-portrait, salvaged from the wreckage. We found this, she said. It survived somehow. Maya accepted it, her fingers tracing the edges of the painting she'd barely started that night. What had begun as a simple exercise now carried the weight of revelation. I'd like to finish it, Maya said quietly. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya worked on her self-portrait while the others watched with newfound respect. She no longer hid her military bearing or the stories behind her tattoos. When asked, she shared what she could about training under Lieutenant Susan Ann Cuddy's special program, about missions alongside Colonel Merrill Tengistal, about the fallen comrades memorialized in her ink. On the final day of class, Maya unveiled her completed self-portrait. The canvas showed her divided, one half in combat gear, the other in civilian clothes, but both halves bearing the same tattoos, the same scars, the same determined eyes. Between the two halves, she had painted a single bridge, connecting her worlds. Art is about vulnerability, she said, echoing Mrs. Calloway's words from that first night. So is courage. The town newspaper ran a feature on Maya the following Sunday, not about her classified missions or her decorated service record, but about her new initiative, art therapy classes for veterans at the VA hospital 30 miles away. The article included a quote from one of her former art classmates. We thought we were seeing someone defined by her tattoos. Instead, we discovered a hero who had been hiding in plain sight. Maya kept the clipping, not out of pride, but as a reminder that bridges could be built in unexpected places. Her commanding officer had once told her that the hardest mission wasn't surviving combat. It was coming home and finding peace afterward. As she prepared for her first veterans art class, Maya looked at her reflection, at the ink that mapped her journey from warrior to survivor to teacher. The tattoos that once made her an outsider now served as her most powerful teaching tool. They were no longer just reminders of those who hadn't come home. They were proof that she finally had.